Alright, so I've said this in a couple of my videos, and I would like to kind of echo it here a little bit. When it comes to trying to get good at grappling, there are a few things that you need to do. One is when you're watching the videos on here, or you go on to any other YouTube channel and watch a video there to try to learn a technique. Don't passively watch it, right? And don't, like, if they've got a playlist, like I've been putting up playlists, don't watch the whole playlist. Watch one video, okay? Train that video, drill it, give it, 10 minutes at least of you going through the steps and really, really trying to understand them. So that's going to be your step one, is that, don't try to learn suddenly, or like just by watching, because you're not going to. The biggest thing that I hear a lot of times with people who are brand new to submission wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that they say that they can't remember the techniques when they're rolling. Absolutely, you're not going to remember anything I taught you here the first time you roll, right? Unless you drill, right? And the thing about that is that you can drill for 10 minutes, and then you're going to go off, and I've put up just about 100 videos here, right? I know some of them are workouts, some of them are nutrition, some of them are these talks, but there are like 100 videos on this channel already, and we are still just scraping the tip of the iceberg, right? And so when don't try to take it all in, right? So drill a bunch of things, find things that you like, and from each position, try to learn like 2 or 3 techniques that really, really speak to you, that you really like, and figure out how to do those, right? Do them over and over again, chain techniques together, and create like this microscript of what your wrestling plan is going to be, right? It's not, A to Z, because nothing's going to go to plan, ever. But if you start to develop little patterns in your rolling and things that you know that you can get to, and yet you can control and you can maintain, and that are going to be are going to be very good patterns for you to get into. And once you start developing those patterns, you don't think about what you're doing, right, guys? If somebody is in my guard and they stand up and they start to like lift the leg up, I'm already going to start setting up a hook sweep there. And it's just, I see that, and this is how I'm going to respond to it, right? So that's what we're trying to develop here, right? It's not necessarily about memorizing as many techniques as you possibly can. In the martial arts video I just recorded, I said I was going to quote Bruce Lee more than once. Well, here's the second quote here, is that, and it's paraphrased, I apologize, is that I don't fear the man who knows 1,000 techniques. I fear the man who's practiced one technique 1,000 times. And there's, a lot of truth to that, right? So, apparently I like this way better. It's just a lot more comfortable. Apparently my muscles are imbalanced. And so when you are practicing, find a few things that really, really sing to you, and figure out how to get to those techniques. And I would say, from guard, I use, I think on average, 2 guard passes, right? That I use frequently. One is going to be the knee cut. The second one that I use is an under overpass, which I will show you guys later. But for some reason, that one just presents itself all the time to me. And so those are my 2 big guard passes, right? The guard breaks that I have 3 that I use. I use the pushback one, which I don't like as much. I do use the leg shuck one, and I use one from standing, right? The one that I use from standing is with key. There is another one that I haven't shown you guys yet, and we'll do it when we have a partner, which is basically knee up Main Street, right up the ass. That one's a pretty decent one as well, but and it works no gi. But the one that I like to do with the gi is I will untuck the lapel, I'll pass it under the body, hold on to it, stand, and then shut the leg, and that causes a twist in the body, and they don't really have control over their legs as much, and then I can usually pass from there. So those are the ones that I usually use. From side control, I spend some time in side control, but I like to have my hands more free, so I usually get into scarf hold is usually my second position I get into. I sometimes use switch base. But, I'm finding myself, when somebody starts trying to escape from those positions, I oftentimes find myself moving over to north-south. And I don't usually tend to spend a lot of time in side control, even though it's one of the hardest positions to escape. I'll usually go to knee ride. Knee ride, if somebody pushes on my knee, I'm getting that arm bar every single time. If, there aren't usually, there's some chokes and whatnot from there. I'll usually get a head and arm choke from there all the time. So there are definitely techniques that I will go to from that position, I have really, and I know I'm making a long-winded point here, but I have two mount escapes that I use on the regular. I'm working on one side mount escape. From mount, I have one attack. I don't really attack from mount much. I have probably a dozen from guard, right? I've got 2 from side control that I use all the time. And from back mount, I don't even bother go for the rear naked choke half the time anymore. I'll sometimes go into a torture chamber, or I'll go to the arm bar, or any number of things from there. But I don't have this big repertoire of moves that I use every single time that I roll. And that's because I'm good at a few good things, and other things present themselves, right? Darce chokes present themselves to me all the time, and I'm now starting to transition to the anaconda more often, because people will defend the darce, and that's usually a good way for me to follow up, and I've had some pretty decent success with that. So it just really depends on what sings to you and what actually works for you, because sometimes things like omoplatas, like I said, that was my highest percentage submission for a long time. Triangles were really, really high for me for a long time, and so I'm getting people are starting to expect those from me, so they don't give me the opportunity as often, but they're still really, really great submissions, and I'm starting to develop more follow-ups. So, and that's the other thing that's going to go into you getting better, right? Is that you are going to develop these techniques that are going to work for you for a long time, and then they're going to stop working. Does that mean you stop using them? No. What it means is that you go for them, and then you add a follow-up onto it, and then that's going to create your chain, and then you're going to start rolling with people in tournaments who don't know your game, right? They're not the people that are on your team, they're not the friends that you have off the internet, and you're going to meet somebody that doesn't know your game, and then suddenly you have this long of a script that you have developed from years of rolling that you can just... You get the first move. If you can't get the first move, you're able to get to the second one, and eventually you fall into your script, and then you're starting to win tournaments all the time. My coach says, he has 2.5 takedowns that he uses. I know which ones they are, and if I go for him, he will totally make me pay for it. But so yeah. Learn a few things, learn how to string things together, and take each technique seriously. So give it 10 minutes, right? After you watch a video, do the technique for 10 minutes. Then move on to the next technique. Do that one for 10 minutes. And go through, and one of the things I did early on, and I apologize that I haven't done it for the guard as much, is I would do the review videos right afterwards. And the purpose of those was to remind you what the techniques were that we went over, and I will do them for the guard. I promise you. I'm going to make a big playlist that's just nothing but review videos. That's just going to cover everything that we've done. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I have no idea, but basically, when you do those review videos, you're reminding yourself what we did the other day, and I want you to maybe write down a list of what they are and try to do them from memory. And it's okay if you miss some details. If you miss some details, go back to the video, watch it again, and figure that out. Because when you find those little holes, that's how you're going to be able to be like, oh yeah, there's that. And one of the things that my coach has said often and often is that when people say, well, why didn't you show me that before? That's this little detail about this technique. Why didn't you show me that before? Well, usually he did. Maybe. He shows things a little bit differently sometimes, and the reason why I know that is because I filmed him teaching for a while, and I was able to compare videos. But yeah, little details show up, and little details get skipped over every single time somebody teaches the class. But most of those details should be there. All the details that you know to make a technique work will be there, right? And so when you are learning, go through the steps. If it's not working for you, go back and rewatch the video and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. And because you had to go back and you had to look it up and you had to remind yourself, and then you had to practice again, not only did you have to go through the process of identifying why it wasn't working, right? You now had to go back and find that detail, and then now suddenly it works. And it's going to be more cemented into your brain because you had to remind yourself, you had to analyze the movement to figure out what you were missing. And that's what's going to give you the ability to hit that technique, the next day and when you're actually rolling. And my last tip for you guys, and this is going to be more for when quarantine's over, and I'll remind you of it then, but when you start rolling with people, but the best advice I can tell you is pick like 2 to 3 things that you are going to do in that roll. And it could be your 1 5-minute roll. It could be for the entire night, right? There's just 3 things that I'm going to hit. I'm going to hit that triangle from the guard. I'm going to hit this guard pass. I'm going to start this way. And you just have those 3 things. So everything else, you might not remember anything else, but you will remember those 3 things while you're rolling. And you're going to get to those positions however you can, and then you're going to start working on those. And that is what's going to make you remember them. So if you're really, really interested in actually getting good at wrestling, then narrow it down and learn and practice with intention, right? Pick a few things, drill them with intention, and once you have your list of techniques that you found that just really spoke to you, master those techniques, right? Master that list. Go through them over and over and over again until they're just second nature to you, and you're going to hit them every time when you roll. So that's my big advice video, guys. I have one more video I want to add to the guard attacks list. I know I said I was all done, but let's go ahead and do that, and we will call it a night.